25 atheist arguments against God evaluated. In a world brimming with skepticism and questions, the concept of divinity often faces relentless scrutiny. 1. Religion causes wars, right? The assertion that religion is the root cause of wars is a common argument, yet historical data reveals a different story. In fact, only about 7% of all wars have been religiously motivated. This number is further dwindled to 3% when Islamic conflicts are excluded. So, while religion has been a factor in some conflicts, the majority of wars have had secular roots. This challenges the notion that religion inherently leads to war and violence. 2. Does religion breed evil? It's often argued that religion is a breeding ground for evil deeds. However, the most murderous figures in history were not religious zealots or atheists. This isn't to say that atheism leads to evil, but it does highlight that evil is a human issue, transcending religious boundaries. The argument against religion using the presence of evil falls short, as history shows that lack of religion doesn't equate to absence of malevolence. 3. Born elsewhere, believe differently? If you were born somewhere else, you wouldn't be a Christian, argue some atheists. The truth is, everyone's beliefs are shaped by their context, including atheists. The real question isn't about the geographical birth lottery, but which worldview, religious or secular, best explains our existence and the nature of the universe. This transcends mere cultural and geographic accident. 4. Can science prove God? The claim that there's no scientific proof of God overlooks the nature of science and divinity. Science, by its very nature, is limited to the natural world. God, by definition, exists beyond this realm. Hence, science is not equipped to prove or disprove God's existence. The relationship between science and religion is not one of mutual exclusivity, but of different realms of understanding. 5. What about supernatural evidence? The assertion that there's no evidence of anything supernatural is challenged by documented cases of phenomena like demonic possessions and near-death experiences. These occurrences, often featuring unexplainable knowledge or language skills, suggest there's more to reality than the purely physical. Dismissing these instances without investigation doesn't align with a truly scientific or inquisitive mindset. 6. Do contradictions in the Bible disprove it? The idea that the Bible is full of contradictions is a common criticism. However, what many perceive as contradictions are often misunderstandings of theological context. The rich history of theological scholarship has addressed these apparent contradictions, offering explanations that align with broader theological narratives. Understanding the Bible requires more than a superficial reading. It demands a deeper exploration of its historical and cultural context through the years. 7. Were the Gospels anonymously written? The anonymity of the Gospel authors is often cited as a point against their credibility. However, anonymity in ancient texts differs from today's understanding. The early church fathers, who were contemporaries of the apostles, provide historical attestations to the authorship of these texts. The anonymity argument therefore does not significantly detract from the credibility of the Gospels. 8. Did Jesus really claim to be God? The claim that Jesus never asserted his divinity is a significant point of contention. While Jesus did not explicitly say, "I am God," his actions and teachings in the Gospels, such as performing miracles and forgiving sins, were clear indicators of his divine identity. The subtlety of his approach, inviting followers to discern his identity, doesn't negate his divine self-revelation, but enriches it. 9. Is the divinity of Jesus a later invention? Some argue that Jesus' divinity was a later addition to Christian theology. However, this overlooks the early writings of Paul and other apostles, which predate the Gospels and affirm Jesus' divinity. The development of the understanding of Jesus' nature in the Gospels does not imply invention, but rather an evolving comprehension of his complex identity. 10. Does the Bible support slavery? The presence of slavery in the Bible is often misconstrued as an endorsement. However, a closer look at the teachings of Jesus in the context of the Old Testament reveals a more complex picture. The Bible's treatment of slavery reflects historical realities rather than an endorsement of the practice. Moreover, the key principles of Christian ethics, such as love, compassion, and equality, ultimately led to the condemnation of slavery. The journey from the Old Testament accommodations to New Testament ethics demonstrates a trajectory towards freedom and dignity for all people, contradicting the claim that the Bible supports slavery. 11. Did Christianity promote slavery, though? While it's true that some Christians in history supported slavery, this is not indicative of Christianity as a whole. It's crucial to recognize that Christian teachings ultimately led to the abolition of slavery on moral grounds. The Christian worldview, which emphasizes dignity and the sanctity of life, played a pivotal role in challenging and ending the practice of slavery globally. This transformation in human rights is a testament to the positive impact of Christian ethics. 12. Is God responsible for death and suffering? The argument that God is culpable for the extensive death and suffering overlooks key theological concepts. In Christian theology, God is seen as a giver and sustainer of life. The presence of death and suffering is attributed to human sinfulness and the broken state of the world. However, the Christian narrative also emphasizes God's redemptive plan, offering hope and restoration beyond the present suffering. 13. Are atheist countries more prosperous? The observation that secular Northern European countries are prosperous leads some to correlate atheism with prosperity. However, this overlooks the historical Christian roots of these societies. Their current prosperity and ethical foundations are significantly influenced by their Christian heritage. Moreover, the prosperity of a nation is determined by a multitude of factors, and attributing it to solely on secularism oversimplifies complex socioeconomic dynamics. 14. Is belief in one God arbitrary? The argument that believing in one less God than the thousands of others believe in is often used to trivialize religious belief. However, this overlooks the fundamental difference between the general belief in a higher power and the specific doctrines of individual religions. The critical issue is not the number of gods one disbelieves in, but the nature of belief itself, and how it aligns with reality and personal experience. 15. Who created the Creator? The question of who created God is a common challenge. In Christian theology, God is understood as an uncaused cause, the necessary being who exists outside of time and space. This concept of God as the first cause is philosophically and theologically coherent, addressing the need for an ultimate source of all existence without the logical fallacy of an infinite regress of causes. 16. Does science disprove God? The belief that science has disproven the existence of God is a misunderstanding of both science and religion. The scientific method, as it's practiced today, was largely developed in a Christian context. Many of the pioneers in modern science were devout Christians who saw their work as a way to understand God's creation. Science and faith are not in conflict, but rather complementary ways of exploring reality. 17. Is God a gap filler? The concept of God as a mere placeholder for unexplained phenomena is a reductionist view of religious belief. In Christian theology, God is not just a gap filler, but the foundational explanation for all existence, including the aspects that science can explain. God is seen as the ultimate cause and reason for everything, providing a comprehensive understanding of both the how and the way of the universe. 18. Why doesn't God eradicate evil? The presence of evil and suffering in the world is a profound challenge in belief in the benevolent God. Christian theology holds that God will ultimately eradicate evil and restore creation. The reason for the temporary presence of evil is tied to human free will and the unfolding of a larger divine plan, which includes human redemption and the realization of greater goods that might not be possible without the existence of evil. 19. Is religion merely wishful thinking? The claim that religion is wishful thinking ignores the depth and complexity of religious belief. Christian theology confronts human sinfulness and the need for redemption, which goes beyond mere wishful thinking. The psychological and social benefits of religious belief can be seen as consistent with the reality created by a benevolent God, rather than as evidenced against it. 20. Can spiritual experiences be dismissed as brain chemistry? Reducing spiritual experiences to mere brain chemistry fails to capture their full significance. While it's true that brain chemistry plays a role in our experiences, this doesn't negate the reality of the significance. Just as romantic love, through influenced by brain chemicals, is a genuine and profound human experience, so too can spiritual experiences be both chemically influenced and deeply real. Dismissing these experiences because of neurochemical components is akin to overlooking the reality of any deeply human experience. 21. Are drug-induced experiences evidence against spirituality? The comparison of spiritual experiences to drug-induced hallucinations overlooks key differences. Those who have experienced both report distinct differences in the nature and impact of these experiences. While drug trips are often characterized as distortions of reality, spiritual experiences such as near-death experiences frequently lead to lasting and transformative changes in understanding and behavior, suggesting a different kind of reality encounter. 22. Was the story of Jesus borrowed from ancient myths? The claim that the story of Jesus is a rehash of older mythologies like that of Horus is a popular but baseless assertion. Scholarly research, including by secular historians, have debunked this notion, showing that these supposed parallels are either exaggerated or entirely fabricated. The historical and cultural context of Jesus' life and teachings is distinctly rooted in Jewish history, through distinct from the mythologies of other ancient cultures. 23. Is faith the antithesis of reason? The idea that faith is opposed to logic and reason is a misconception. Faith, in a religious sense, is more akin to trust based on evidence and experience. Just as one trusts in the safety of food without testing every meal in a lab, or in the love of a spouse without empirical proof, faith in a religious context is often built on a foundation of historical, philosophical, and personal evidence, not unspited. 24. Does evolution disprove creation? The theory of evolution does not inherently contradict the concept of a divine creator. Many Christians view evolution as a tool used by God in the process of creation. The interpretation of Genesis and the creation story has varied among theologians long before Darwin's time, with many seeing it as allegorical or metaphorical rather than a literal scientific account. The harmony between faith and science is seen in a view that God often works through natural processes. 5. Why are there so many Christian denominations? The existence of numerous Christian denominations is often cited as a sign of Christianity's inconsistency. However, the core beliefs shared across these denominations, such as the divinity of Christ, the significance of his resurrection, and the principles of love and grace, are far more profound and unifying than the differences. These shared beliefs form the cornerstone of Christian faith, transcending denominational divides. Returning to our initial curiosity from Bible short stories, these arguments against God, while often presented as new and unanswerable, have been addressed and refuted through centuries of theological and philosophical discourse. The persistence of faith and the resilience of religious belief in the face of skepticism are testaments not to the fragility of faith, but to its enduring strength and depth. The journey of understanding and belief is not a simplistic one. It's a rich mosaic of history, experience, and profound personal transformation. Bible Short Stories, signing off.